Welcome.
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 Everybody, I'm Yoni, the founder and director of Eden Village Camp.
And I'm Pesach, the teacher of Pesach's online Hebrew school.
We lived aloft all the way to the top of these 300-foot trees. We lived up top for months of our lives.
Wait, you lived where, what?
What, where, what, when? And there's the Jewish holiday of trees, Bshvat, is coming up. We lived aloft in the redwood trees and want to tell you stories about it and show you pictures. And we made some family awesome resources and games that we want to share with you. But what is this Bshvat thing all about, brother?
Okay. So first of all, it's so cool that in the Jewish tradition, we have special times to connect to and through creation, okay? And so this is the birthday of the trees. There's a Jewish farming law that you have to wait 3 years before you harvest a fruit from a tree. And so the way we count the birthdays of the trees is with Tu B'Shvat, okay?
Google calendars and stuff like that.
Well, it's hard to remember people's birthdays. Like when's your uncle's birthday? When's your nephew's birthday? It's hard to remember, let alone remembering the birthday of that tree that you planted, okay? So all birthdays, all trees, their birthday is Tu B'Shvat, okay?
Now Tu B'Shvat is also just the kind of Jewish Earth Day. We're celebrating the earth, getting closer. We're listening to the earth on this day.
Yeah, and a lot of people have a Tu B'Shvat Seder, like Pesach, like a Pesach Seder, right? And there's different stages of the Seder. And so we know that a lot of folks are going to be home this year for Tu B'Shvat. And so Eden Village and my online Hebrew school, we put together some resources so that you parents and you families can click below, download some PDFs about how to run really super fun games with your family. Super easy, fun, meaningful.
What are some of the games?
Okay, one of them is a real fun, simple one. It's called Group Poetry Songwriting Game. You write 2 lines of a poem, you fold it back, pass it over. The next person sees only the last 2 lines of a poem. They pass it, they get it, they fold it, they write 2 lines, and it's silly. And it's themed on Judaism and nature. You start with a theme of Judaism and nature, and you end up with a beautiful poem.
You made it together.
Yeah. You made it together. It's good family, wholesome fun, and you can turn it into a song afterwards. I also have a write-up. We have a write-up for Jewish eco charades, where first we go through a bunch of Jewish eco laws and terms and holidays, and you learn them, and then you play charades. You can throw in funny charade characters like Baby Yoda, Billie Eilish, and Moses. You know, you can throw that in just for fun. Yeah. So that's a resource, Tu B'Shvat's Wednesday night to Thursday night. Click on the PDF, download it. Yoni, tell us about living in trees.
This is one of my favorite things on earth to share about. These are not just trees, these are the tallest trees on earth. So if you took like a soccer or football field and you took a God-sized crane and yanked it up vertically, that's how tall these trees are. You can't really have a good picture of an entire redwood tree because they're just too tall.
They're too big.
I remember the first time I saw them, it was kind of like if you've ever seen a whale in the ocean. It's like, what? I can't believe this is part of existence.
I was 18 the first time I walked in a redwood forest. You were nearby. You were hanging out by a river. I walked in by myself. It was the first time that I felt the trees talking to me, or felt nature talking to and through me. I think something opened up. And it was actually then when I found out that they were getting cut down so severely, I was like, yo, let's go do some forest protection. But we'll get to that later. Tell us more about the trees.
Some of these trees are over 2,000 years old, meaning the time of the temple in Jerusalem. These trees were babies then, and they're alive today.
The same trees, the same tree that was alive during the times of the temple in Jerusalem are alive today.
Maccabees, the tree, that time. Now listen, some of these trees, you guys are used to seeing Pixar videos and we can make stuff up. This is an actual photograph of an adult standing by the tree. It took me 34 steps to walk all the way around one of these trees. They are monumentally beautiful. Can I get a go nature?
Go nature, go nature, go.
So they are amazing. The problem is that people took over the companies that owned the forests, which is the whole concept, owning a forest, right? Who's owning the forest? And instead of taking one, leaving 30, taking another, leaving 20, these people came in and they clear cut. They just took all and turned this beautiful, lush, dense, rich, alive, vibrant. I mean, just when you walk into a redwood forest, it smells like life. Okay, and they just cut all the life out of it.
Yeah. One of the deepest teachings, Yon, I think of the world today, of 2021, of our generation right now, is how do we take from the earth? How do we take food? How do we take resources? How do we take up time? Right? How do we take? We all use wood for guitars, for flutes, for tables, for fires. But how do we take? Is it with beauty,
pictures,
with asking, with listening, or do we just destroy mindlessly, heartlessly? God forbid. Having a Tu Bshvat helps us to appreciate what we got. Tell us more about the trees.
Well. So what happened is, some people have a hard time listening to the earth, listening to the trees. So what a lot of our friends in Pesach, we did it for a few months, and with our Casey and a bunch of friends, we went and we lived up in the trees. People weren't, the trees aren't just yelling in English, stop. I think they're yelling it, but we can't hear it. So we went up, put our bodies up in the tree. And one of the reasons we do it is because if a logger cuts down a tree with a person in it, that's called murder. They go to jail for that because they're knowingly cutting down a tree with a person in it. So we literally put our bodies up in the trees, and that's looking down. You can kind of see
I'm in that picture. Do you know that, Yon? Do you see me? That's I think I was going up or down.
Liebertal, is that the name of that?
That's Liebertal. I'm in that. If you can see
all
where
the trees. Now, who are you? That tree is Liebertal. We all have names up in the trees, our forest names. I am Waka Waka, speaking.
And my tree sitter name is Admiral Ambassador Pankiki Skywalker, at your services.
And some of the other trees had names like Thirsty, Winnie, Her Majesty,
Leaner,
Patience. All names. There's Pesach and I and a bunch of friends. This was actually a Hanukkah party.
Hey, maybe people could write in the notes who they think which one is which.
Yeah, which was Pesach. We're all wearing, harnesses and tied into the trees at all time.
Hold on. You said it very quickly. We had a Hanukkah party floating up in the air, y'all. The craziest part about it, I think the craziest part about it is time would go by, hours would go by, we'd be singing, talking, and you would forget that you were floating so high up in the trees.
And then you look out and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we're still up here. There wasn't room in this little tree sit for me to sit. So I was actually wearing a harness. You see that, Pesach? And I was literally hanging.
I remember that. You were hanging out for hours at the Hanukkah party.
Here's a bit also what it looks like. You can see a little table. We cook with little propane stoves, tarpology to keep the rain and snow out. A lot of times when you're not using your sleeping bag or a jug of water, you just tie it onto a branch and throw it overboard 10 feet. About once a day, something would fall out of the tree, like a fork or something like that. And everything would stop. Everybody up in the trees would stop. What was that? Is everybody okay? Yeah. And you can start to see that these branches are very strong. And I'll show you what we were actually sitting on.
The scariest, yo, do you remember when branches would fall?
That was
the scariest. You'd all be sitting around singing a nice song, and you just hear crack, crack, crack.
I remember being up there too during some snow and lightning storms, and those trees. It's a great life lesson. They're humongous and tall and strong and flexible, like way flexible. Those things were swaying and swaying. I remember
you people at home, are you strong and flexible?
That's a good way to be. So look, this is what we were on. We call it dream catcher technology because it's like this big web connected to the branch. When you look down, you don't see the ground because we're actually in the canopy of lush green. So it was really hard to even see down to the bottom. So you have this big net like a dream catcher, but flat, and with the tarps and sleeping bags and blankets on it. There's Vivian, my wife, going up the tree for our honeymoon. And there's another kind of platform that's using wooden planks on the bottom, suspended from branches. Here's another donut wraparound. Here's two tree sits kind of merging together. There's Vivian, my wife. This was like the upper deck. This was like the hangout loft. Our tree sit, you can kind of see it at the bottom there. And this was about 30 feet up. And you could hang out up there. It was closer to the tippy whippy. That's what we call the top of the trees. I remember having such amazing experiences from the tippy whippy of prayer and singing, crying and listening and getting to know the birds, and not the species of birds, but the actual animal that would come every day or two from the same valley. And sometimes there was this bluebird with a little mohawk that would come by and eat some oats from us every day around.
And flying squirrels. We had flying squirrels. I remember dipping in our food bag.
There's one of the flying squirrels. That's Casey. He's also the founder and director of Eden Village West. We have a West Coast camp and an East Coast camp. The trees were all connected by a web of sometimes 30, 40 zip lines, so that that whole web was connected. And
did you hear that, people at home? 30, sometimes like 30 trees connected zip to zip to zip. You could travel a significant distance up in the air.
Sometimes you'd have to like go up a tree 50 feet, zip over. Like if I wanted to go to Pesach's tree to get some hummus.
Hey, we're making hummus. We're having a hummus party. Come on over.
We go up 50 feet, rappel, zip over to that tree, go down 40 feet, go over to that. There was like, it sounds like you needed a map sometimes. There's Casey upside down. That's his tree set. You can see all the stuff hanging out. That's Rifki, his wife, going up. Look up, by the way. You can't even, it's like,
you can't even see it. You can't
part
see
of the tree you see is maybe like a quarter of the entire tree.
Where those does not fit in a camera. It doesn't even fit in a camera.
That's me going across one of my first zip lines. Somebody walking across the zip line. Somebody hugging a tree. Our 4 big points that we're trying to say is not to never, ever use trees, but it's to not take them all and clear cut. Don't cut the super old ones. They're not going to grow back anytime soon. They're old. The trees that are literally holding the hills together, probably a good idea to keep them there. They're holding the hill together.
Yeah. And
don't spray weird chemicals on them. Plants and animals generally don't like that. This person, Julia Butterfly, lived aloft, didn't touch the ground for 2.5 years. Okay? 2.5 years. She came up just for a little bit and she said, I'm staying up here until this forest is protected. There's a beautiful video on YouTube of her when she did touch the ground for the first time. And her big wisdom that she came home with was, what calls you to stretch and grow to the uncomfortable places, the unknown, to find out that you are more powerful and magical than your mind could have believed? How can you turn your inspiration into action? That's the big idea. Listen, there's so much to share. If you have questions, first of all, come to camp. We have a camp.
The camp's open. California camp, East Coast camp. We're open this summer. Sign up is open now.
And we'd love to share more about tree sitting. You can also type any questions down in the question chat bar below.
Yeah, also, if you're looking for an online Hebrew school, registration is open. Next semester starts in February. So you can also sign up. I'll put a link for that below also. And yeah, if you want to know more about stuff like this, you can come to camp. We sit around campfires and talk about important things. And I think, Yon, one of the coolest things about tree sitting is it felt like our beliefs and our actions were one. And so that's my blessing for everybody, that you get clear on what you believe and then live a life where your actions and your doings match that. Have an amazing Tu B'Shvat. Go hug a tree. Download some of these Tu B'Shvat games.
Pets, can I share real briefly that the biggest thing that I remember taking home from my time? I remember feeling like, oh my God, we're being literally held by the trees. And the biggest take home for me had to do with like feeling that I wasn't going to visit nature. Like a lot of times you hear like, oh, we're gonna go, let's go. Hey, what are you doing at 5? You wanna go for a walk in the wood in nature? Like it's a museum. And I remember learning the lesson up there that we are nature. How couldn't we be? And that we're one. And ever since that moment, I felt at home in my home. I felt at home in a much deeper way. And so that's my wish to you all, that we feel at home in our home. Bye, everybody.
Hug Sameach, happy Tu B'Shvat. Go hug a tree.
Woo-hoo.